Now this place we're standing in front of now is the old Channel 29. This is the old facility where we had a studio, a main studio where you'd have a 4-camera crew where people could learn about how to produce real TV shows. You have a camera crew, you have a lighting director, you have somebody switching the cameras, you have a director, you have a floor director, you have camera people. And so this brings about a team effort to produce a product, which is what television is all about, which is what I grew up in, is doing television in a team type atmosphere where you work toward one goal, and at the end of the show you have a completed program.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I just want to let you tired of the discrimination against how long I have been on the public access channel. All they talk about is, you know, you've been here too long, it's time for you to retire. You've been here since 1973. So it has been all age discrimination for the last 15 years and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to small claims and sue the city for discrimination as a senior. Okay? In small claims, in small claim, so it'll be quick and easy. $10,000, $5,000, but it'll get the message across. They gotta stop doing that. They gotta stop telling all these young producers, oh, get rid of the old producers because they are garbage. You guys are the ones that have the real message of San Francisco and all this stuff. That's ridiculous, and it reflects in the way they take care of our programming, our scheduling, everything. I mean, the last time my program, I gave it to Phil, right on his hands, 3 days for the program, of it. When I ran and scheduled that, and I came back and I said, too many people calling me and what? I mean, how many of us get interrupted in our aim and goal in life and we still go with it? He's getting paid for it. I gave him the program, schedule it. Tell your friends, stop bothering me. I'm doing my job. Instead, he scheduled his friends on my program, and he took my program off. And he said, well, they confused me. They kept calling me. Come on, then you're not fit to do the job. Okay? All right, thank you guys up to date. When is the actual day in court? All right? And I need your help in finding out which is my best target of the person to sue or the committee to sue in the government. From my viewpoint as a long-standing good producer of Channel 29 since 1973, and being discriminated against my length, the seniority of my program, and the seniority of my age. So both things are being discriminated upon. Thank you very much.
My name is David Miles. I had a public access show called Skating Place. It was an award-winning show. I was also one of the board of directors on the channel. We are here today to take a picture of all of the producers which were basically shedded away or taken off the air because of the politics surrounding public access in San Francisco. The CTC, Community Television Corporation, was running it for quite a number of years, I think like 9, 10 years or so. And those last 5, 46 years, whatever that is, there was just a steady decline in the relationship between the producers and the people running the channel. Now, when you combine that with the funding that the different sources were putting in, and basically the liabilities that the corporation took on moving from different locations, upgrading and all that kind of stuff, it led to what is now the death of public access. It's nothing what it was. It's just, it was a great thing while it lasted, and it could have lasted even more. It could be even stronger today had we been able to really take some measures to save it. But when you,
what were those things that would be needed to save community access?
Well, I mean, first of all, you got to understand the difference between public access television and public television. Public television, you know, you have funding, you go out there, you do all these great things, you know, shed light on different issues that you may not be aware of. Public access television is the average Joe, you and me, you know, wanting to put on a television show, wanting to have access to the airwaves to say, like roller skating, okay? I love roller skating. I do races in roller skating. We do kids, teaching them to skate. We do all this different outreach for people to get outside and be healthy. It's the kind of thing that I would like to see as a TV show. So I got me a slot, and I produced my show, won awards for it, got thousands of people to get involved and get out there and do it, and that's what public access television is. So what happened here is the public access channel starts to get more and more money. Pretty soon you got people that want that money. They want to direct it to where they want it to go. And these aren't public access producers. These are generally people that have been involved in television on the periphery. Meaning, I want to work for KGO, but I can't get that job, so I'll get here in the public access. Like, I want to be a cop, but I can't, so I'll be a security guard, and I'll be hard-ass on everybody. It's kind of like that. And the Community Television Corporation came in, was going to upgrade stuff, move us into a better facility, better stuff, better, longer, greater, whatever you can say. And now we sit here with an empty building with furniture turned upside down, money wasted, a lot of shows gone. And it's a direct result of the way that this corporation interacted with the people who are the heart and soul of public access television.
So how much money was gone?
How much money over the years? Well, you're talking roughly $1 million a year, 10 or so years. And then you have building money to build facilities with, which is another thing. You could see a good $20 to $25 million just flush down the toilet over. You know, it's like here.
Well, this BAVC, I mean, they promised that they were going to make things better and use new technology, that you didn't have to, you know, didn't have to have a community access station. You could have community access. What's happened with that?
Well, I'm not really involved in public access anymore. I'm just so turned off from it that I'm not involved. But I don't know what people expect them to say. What are you going to say when you want a contract? You're going to say, hey, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, I'll make it great. And look who you're talking to get that contract. They're the same people you've been working with, went to school with. Now they got jobs in the city, like DTIS, stuff like that. You can't call it an inside job per se, but then you can if you know the politics of San Francisco. A lot of things have happened where there's been questionable situations surrounding it, but this one is like a no-brainer. It's not that BAVC's a bad organization or anything. It's not like they're the evil group that's trying to destroy the world or anything. BAVC has their own mission, things they want to do, you know, and things that they have done, and they're great at what they do. But they represent the public television part of this whole convoluted thing. We are public access television, meaning individuals that can come and do their shows and put their stuff out. Not, okay, here's this company doing something and they want to do a documentary and show it. Then they go to a public television thing and do something like that. Not public access television. And when you look at what you have offered to you on television, when you turn on that tube, the public access part of it is the only thing that you're going to see that's from the people, by the people, for the people. Everything else is by the corporation, for the corporation, with the corporation, in favor of the corporation, and we are the victims, or you know, the prey, or the customer. We are just those numbers that they're out there trying to get. And when you try to inject that into public access and artists and people with political issues and things, it just doesn't jive. It's two different animals. It's apples and oranges. And we're here today to try to, well, we're here today basically reminiscing on the good old days. Don't everybody do that? The good old days.
So you still want to see community access revived? There's still the channels.
I think it's a very, very important part of culture. You know, it's the only voice the people have. I mean, look at the meetings they have at City Hall. The people at City Hall and running our government, they want you to know what's going on. Here you have a chance to sit in and be a part. You get 3 minutes to say your piece. at these meetings, and sometimes they're very, very super important things, like what school your kid's going to go to, or what hospital is going to take you when you're sick, or if they even will do it. You know, all these different issues that are going on. There's no public forum as public as television, the most powerful medium in the world, that the average person can have access to, except for public access. It's very, very important, and it's, you know, it's just as important as voting. You know, it goes along those same lines of the commons. You know, we need it. We need it. I hope that us gathering together and talking about it and remembering it and, you know, feeling that passion, because, you know, you can feel it. I hope that can generate a spark that can launch another effort to bring it back and make it, not just bring it back, but evolve with it. You know, because now we got the internet and everything to back up public access. And although the internet is, some people would think that, well, why we need public access? You can just go to the web and do your thing. Well, all politics, all life, everything that affects you is local, and we need that. We need that access to the local cable or the local television, cable, satellite, and I hope that we can make something happen.
Yeah, good memories. Yeah. Well, I'm Rod Loffridge. I was here at Access SF here at 17.
What did you produce? What did you produce here?
Well, the first show I ever produced was a talk show called The Voice. It was about contemporary social issues, and then from that it segued. I got together with some of the producers here, and I actually queried them. I said, "Hey, what would you guys think, and guys and women think about if we producers here in San Francisco, since so many of us are doing socially relevant things on issues that aren't covered by the corporate press, by the local corporate press, if we have our own news show?" And a lot of people were into that. So I organized a news show. We called it Newsroom on Access SF. We actually won a WAVE award. We got nominated for a local Northern California Emmy, which was good. We went up against KGO, KPIX, and that. But basically the gist of the show was, you know, I noticed from working on a lot of the other shows, you know, people were doing things like on neighborhood issues, labor issues, LGBT, transgender issues, all the various demographics, not only local but nationwide and worldwide. So I said, well, you know, if we all got together and pooled our talents, you know, we could do something that you don't see on the corporate news. And so we could make our own news show here at Public Access, only make it, you know, professional and make it world events and make it relevant. And that's what we did, because everybody has, you know, their own demographics, their own contacts, so on and so forth. So we brought it all together, and it was a huge success. You know, the success was not, you know, me producing it or anything like that. It was the fact that the community got together. You know, it was when you talk about, you know, public access or community access, you know, the thing that makes, I mean, yes, you know, we lost our building, we lost our studio, and they had cameras and everything else, but the thing that makes community is the people. You know, I mean, everything I learned, I've since gone on to have my own video production company, and everything I've learned about cameras, about lighting, about directing, about how to even do a show, how to hold a camera even. I learned this at Public Access from the people here, from the facilitators here. So when we got together and created our new show, it was just such a great thing, because everyone was able to just bring, you know, their own interests, their own expertise, and we all put it all together in one show. And the thing that made it work, the thing that made it click, was the community. And by the community, I mean the people here.
And what happened to the show?
Well, like everything else at Public Access, is imploded. There are a number of reasons for that, but and I'm sure that's been well documented.
Talk about it.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Some of it had to do with mismanagement of how the station was run.
How did that?
Well, basically, when we did have the facility, so that was good. You know, we had a studio and that sort of thing. But we noticed that a lot of equipment that should have been available to us, things that were allocated for public access, were not being used for public access. Such as, for instance, we had a studio that was supposed to be for the producers here, and then, as it turned out, to even get the use of that was so cumbersome. You had to take a multitude of classes. You had to work with it a number of times, which I can understand that you want to know what you're doing, but then you had to have like a couple of facilitators with you to use it. Facilitators are employees of the station. So it turned out that it really wasn't for our use at all, but it was for the station's use. So, you know, things of that nature. And then, you know, later I found out that he allocated for use at the studio. Towards the end, you know, we started seeing new equipment. But where was that new equipment then? You know, I remember I went to City Hall so many times, you know, to fight for this studio to keep it open. Yes. And we'd hear from people like in Santa Rosa, and they talk about, you know, we've got 5 editing suites and 3 dubbing stations and 6 cameras for checkout. And this stuff would just make my jaw hit the ground. It's like, they've got 3 times as much as we do, and they're Santa Rosa. You know, yeah. So where, you know, where's the money that's being allocated for us being spent on us?
For us.
Yeah. So things like this. So then when it finally imploded, and now it's gone over to BAVC, and they self-admittedly, you know, we don't know how to run the public access station. You know, and I can understand, you know, we all started fresh, you know, not knowing anything, and you come in fresh, whether you're coming in as a green producer as I did, as all of us did, or if you're just starting out the studio. But one of their big mistakes, and I believe their biggest mistake, and of course there may be bigger ones because I've really since cut ties with them, was that, okay, you don't know how to run it, but you've got 200 and some odd people here that do. Not a one of us was asked for our expertise. You know, we have people here, sure, some people had 1 year of experience. At that time I had 8 or 9. You had people with 10, 15, 20, 25 years of experience. You had producers, you had facilitators, you had people that had worked with public access from the ground up. Not a one of us was asked a single question about, okay, I don't know how to do this, how do I do it? I know when I went in there, even after taking the classes, if someone would say, do you want, like my weakest thing was the audio board. So if someone ever wanted me to work audio, I'd say, well, I don't know it that well, can you help me? What do I need to do? I asked the other producers, and that's how I learned. You know, things about the camera, things about directing, things about hosting a show, how to double tape. I didn't know how to get a tape from one format to another until producers showed me how to do it. I knew how to turn on the camera, but when people said, is it white balance? It's like, white what? But I learned this from producers. I learned about shutter speed. I learned about gain. I learned about all of that. So now they get the franchise for public access. Admittedly, they know nothing about it, and they don't ask us not a single question. And the thing is, now what they want to do, their thing is, well, don't come to the studio. You know, tape your show at home, edit your show at home, upload it on the internet, and leave us the hell alone. We don't want to see you. We don't want to see a thing about you. We don't want to hear from you.
Your money too.
Right. And the money that's being allocated for public access is going just to them. There is no line of demarcation between what is the BAVC classes. What they do well. I mean, I learned to edit at BAVC. But about public access, they don't know. And the money that's allocated for public access is being given to BAVC for public access is not going to public access.
You know,
okay, so that's why I cut ties with them, because like I say, we were asked not question the first. They self-admittedly don't know what to do it, and what they have done when they talk about public access or community access, that does not exist anymore. Because as I said before, sure, you can have a physical space, you can have cameras, operating boards, everything else, but community and community access is the people. The only reason I was able to do my shows, especially the newsroom, the one that got nominated for an Emmy and won a WAVE award, was because of the community. And that was the people. If it weren't for the people here, if it weren't for the other producers at Access SF, there would have never been a newsroom on Access SF, because what made the show, the only thing that made the show, was the people that participated in it, the people that came on the show, the guests that we brought in, the people that crewed the show. That was the community, and BAVC has totally decimated any aspect of community. That means they have decimated community access or public access.
Well, they say that they're training young people to do news programs at community access, community centers and that kind of thing. What's about that?
You know, I don't really know about that, because like I said, I wash my hands of it, but they may be showing them how to use the equipment and how to edit and that sort of thing. And like I say, I'm not there. I have washed my hands with them. I'm just so disgusted, so I can't really speak to that. But I do know this. If what they are training them to do is what they have trained or what they have allocated for the current producers, sure, you may show someone how to edit and how to use a camera, but you are not going to allow them to get together as a community, to come together as a community and produce as a community. And how can you have a news show if you don't have community?
Community advisory board, that community advisory board has been decimated because they have, in a very draconian kind of a way, demanded that we sign a document that we were highly suspicious of and had questions about. And they said, if you don't sign this document, you are off of this community advisory board today. And 3 of us refused to sign it. You know, I mean, we had some serious questions about it. And not only that, a 4th person resigned from the board. A week later, even after I did come back and sign the document, they said, no, you're off the board, right? This is the head of what they call public access. And it's bogus. And so this is what they have done. They have taken the money and used it to support their ongoing efforts as a nonprofit agency called BAVC. And when it comes to public access and what they call SF Commons, they've gutted public access out of the whole concept of what the spirit of public access is about. Is exactly what you said. It's about the public.
Right, because if we can't get together as a community, then there's no...
Exactly.
They say that they don't have the money for staff.
Well, not only that, they're not bringing in the volunteers like Rod was saying, the people that have been doing public access for years, that do have experience and do need a place where they can congregate and produce, you know, programming to benefit and raise the awareness of the public of what's happening in our communities.
So who are they representing?
The nonprofit, BAVC. It's all about their money and their budget. Well, I understand their budget is around $5 million, so that's pretty hefty, you know.
For the city for community access?
We don't know yet. We don't know. We need, as somebody else was saying, we need to have an inspection and an audit of what's happening with the staff and an audit of what's happening with the money.
And Barry Fraser, I thought they have somebody oversighting you.
Right, and of course they moved Barry from a whole nother department. He's not even with the Department of Technology. So, you know, shell game.
Do you know about the board meetings and what happened at these board meetings?
Barely did. In fact, the last board meeting, which they never have opened, they've never made the board minutes available so we can see what are they discussing regarding public access. They know that I have been, you know, strategically involved with building a public access facility here. And I was president of the board. I signed all the checks that built this place. I had to approve everything. Our board had to approve. And with that expertise, they have never asked me once. They don't even have any committees on their board. They have no understanding of what it takes to really engage the public and engage them in a meaningful way.
The board that runs that, a lot of them don't even live in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, well I can't say that for sure, but yeah. Okay, so there you go.
National board running a community.
They're really disengaged. Yeah. Well, the board is definitely luminary. I mean, they don't. They really don't know how. Yeah, what happened again? You know, we don't know. Like I said, you know, the board meetings have been totally closed, and I have asked repeatedly for information about what their discussions have been, so that we can have effective public comment. Not one word.
My name is Gene Morris. I also work with Veterans for Peace of San Francisco. I'd like to mention that Ellison and Rod were right on about some of the major issues. Primarily, what BAVC has done to access SF is destroy the community. I can't think of a worse accusation than destroying an existing community. My take on this is I can't believe it's incompetence. I believe that this is disaster capitalism. This is an operational definition of disaster cap. What you are seeing is a effective public institution. As it grinds down, ultimately it will become so dysfunctional that most probably it will be given back to Comcast, and I would assume those people who are involved then be employed by Comcast. This is disaster capitalism at its very worst. I just completed the Neighborhood News Network program yesterday. I went through the complete program. I was the person to show up. it's all a dog and pony show, the way it's being operated. The Neighborhood News Network, which has taken funds from the Renaissance Journalism Center to create this, has really operated very dysfunctionally, I would say. The equipment that was promised was not brought in, and even then, the last of that equipment was never actually brought to the cultural center. This very dysfunctional program will now be presented in Tucson, Arizona, the end of the month. And this is what BAVC is doing. This is how very either incompetent, or I can't believe it's incompetent. There's 4 or 5 people plus interns who are operating SF Commons. I mean, 40 hours a week by 5 people, and they can't operate this. Look at these incredible resources that you have seen here. These people who are dedicated to public access television. I think that this is not accident. This is by design.
Is it fraud? Do you think there's fraud that they're engaged in?
I would suggest that there is a serious need to investigate this.
Should the Attorney General and the District Attorney investigate the use of city money for this thing?
I believe so, and I would hope that as a result of our meeting that we develop a committee that represents public access TV, that we can approach the mayor, the Board of Supervisors, Department of Technology as citizens who are extremely anxious about the fate of this incredible communication tool that is being destroyed.
This is Eric Arnold. Yeah, you got to ask questions,
okay,
though.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Eric Arnold, a photojournalist.
And why would you decide to help?
Well, I got a fellowship with the Media Consortium and New American Media to do an report on media policy and the impact of media on communities. And for months, Tracy Rosenberg from Media Alliance has been telling me that I need to do what's been happening with access in San Francisco, and that it's really in a very uniquely difficult situation, which is even more uniquely difficult than the uniquely difficult situation that public access around the country finds itself in.
What did you discover?
I discovered that there was a new model that had been implemented that only worked on paper. And in terms of the reality, it increased the digital divide. It displaced a lot of people, low-income people, seniors. It really cut out. It changed the model of public access and made a lot of the reporting that had been done, a lot of the shows that had been able to work under the previous model, some of which were award-winning, some were nominated for Emmys and so on and so forth, were no longer able to be possible under the new model.
And was this new model brought in?
Well, it's brought in because in 2006, the California State Legislature, wisdom, passed by 77-0 a bill called the DIVCA Act, which, it was heavily sponsored by Comcast and AT&T. It was supposed to competition, create jobs, and other good stuff, but what it actually did was it cut the budgets for public access. The board in California, 45 PEG stations disappeared. In San Francisco, the budget was cut 80%. And that, sort of necessitated the city sending out for an RFP, a request for a proposal from a new operator.
What about BAVC? What did they tell you, and what did you learn?
What did they tell me? Well, BAVC is an organization that has a history of doing video training in community groups. However, they have no prior to operating a public access whatsoever. That's not what they do. So when they got when they became the operator of Channel 76 and Channel 29, San Francisco's 2 public access stations, they saw that as something that they could fold into their existing model. It's resulted in sort of an alteration of what public access is. What it means is it's you know, if I was going to sum it up in easily digestible site, it would be the access or media without the community. It's a virtual model as opposed to an actual model. Thing where they've shifted most of the production to off-site. They want to integrate it with the internet services, right? But what you don't have is an interactive culture. You don't have the collaboration between the producers. You don't have the 3-camera studio setup that's needed to advance people in careers in television. You know, this is all stuff that came out of my reporting from talking to the producers, you know, and then when you go over and you talk to BAVC, their bottom line will be, well, we don't have the budget to do that. We don't have the staff to do that. Saying that there's no operations budget for everything and that's why we can't do anything does seem to be an awfully convenient excuse. FCC specifically touted it as a possible model for the future because they like the integration with broadband. The only problem is that actually hasn't been built out. It actually does not exist right now other than on paper. If you actually talk to the LG, they will tell you that we don't know what the heck is going on with this because it's not there yet.
And did you talk to Barry Fraser?
Barry's out of the loop. Barry is no longer involved with the problem or with the situation. I talked to another policy analyst, the guy that took over after him, and you know, he can talk about fiber optic cables all day, but when you say, okay, well, what's your commitment to community media? You know, he doesn't really have an answer for that. You know, so it really remains to be seen. I mean, theoretically, the public broadband space that they want to do could be built out. They could create this infrastructure, but those are a lot of ifs. You know, those are a lot of ifs.
Now, BAVC says they're training people, these community center, cultural center training, news training of young people. What's involved in that?
Okay, you're talking about the N3 programs, which is Neighborhood News Network, 3 partnerships, Mission Cultural Center, Soma Arts Cultural Center, and Omega Boys and Girls Club. You know, those are programs that theoretically represent outreach to community. The thing is that they don't necessarily replace regular community news programming. That are already, there's certain limitations built into that because you have to get Boys and Girls Club. So instead of like a community reporter with, you know, a 20 or 30 year history of doing neighborhood issues, you have, you know, some kids between the ages of 9 and 12 who do a program about sports at the club that they're at. So it's basically produced an infomercial. I think all 3 programs so far to date have resulted in a total of 90 minutes of airtime for all 3 programs.
Community access?
You know, you tell me.
It's an infomercial.
Well, that's what has been produced. You know, and to be fair, these programs do have the potential to be much more than that, but I think they would take a level of community outreach that does not exist at the present.
What's your name again?
It's Eric Arnold.
And where's the article going to come out?
This article is going to be in New American Media.
Thank you.
Now, what has happened since they closed this facility, they took the main studio from here. They took the main studio from here and they moved it over to the BAVC facility, and it has not been operated since, and that has been, I guess, a couple of years now. Now, the main studio there, they have the cameras there, they have the switching panel, they have all the controls, but they will not use it because they say they don't have the manpower to do it. And we have volunteers that are out here right now that's about to take pictures to go with this article this young man has written. Volunteers that has volunteered to come in and operate the studio, because a lot of shows are studio shows. A lot of shows are not a show where you can just take one camera out and shoot it, because you might have a guest. You might have a guest you want to sit down and have a little talk show. Now, you can't do that with a one camera situation. It's not a studio. And then once you shoot it like with one camera, what you have to do is you have to go home, then you got to edit it, put titles on it and all that. So that's more time the producer has to spend to put a program together. Whereas if you have the studio, you sit down and in the studio and you produce the program comes on, you put it all together at that time. So when you leave, you have a completed program that's ready to air the following day.
The city spent a lot of money.
Yeah, now this is really sad, folks, because this facility here that they spend, I think, upwards of $1 million. How much they spent on this? Upwards of $1 million. To build this, and it was a pretty nice. It was really a good studio. It had a main studio, you know, where we were really proud of this place, and they had a conference room. I mean, it was really nice right here on Market Street. But now
the money's going to BAVC.
And now the money is going to BAVC. But the thing I'm disappointed in is they don't even use the studio, and haven't used it since they got the contract there. I mean, they have. I mean, they may use it for the open mic, but that's it. You know, I mean, you can't produce a show. Now the guy behind the camera here, Steve Zelser. Yeah, okay. Now, when I asked them repeatedly to use the studio to do a talk show or a studio show, they would tell me that they didn't have the manpower to operate the studio. And I asked about volunteers repeatedly. I said, we got enough volunteers who were working in the studio at the other place on Market Street. We have enough people qualified to operate the studio that operated the studio on Market Street to operate that studio, and who would volunteer, and they would not let us do it. So that's really one of my main problems with BAVC, is that they have a studio and they will not let us use it, and we are qualified to use the studio.
So this Jen Giloman.
Yeah, Jen Giloman is the director of BAVC and community access, the community access part of BAVC.
From the board?
No, I wasn't removed from the board. I resigned from the board after the board members were fired. How do you say it? What's the right word for that? After the board members who wouldn't sign the agreement, I signed the agreement, but there was 3 people who didn't sign it, and they were immediately removed.
I don't think it was in an effort to shut people up.
Well, they removed it because they wanted people to sign an agreement that mainly took away their rights. You couldn't say this, you couldn't do this. I mean, and we had just been elected by the community, and that statement was not on the election form that we signed on. It wasn't there, you know. And all we wanted to do was work on the wording, and then, you know, we were in agreement that it should be some guidelines, but the way they had worded it, a lot of people, including myself, did not agree with it, and all we wanted to do was work with them and reword it somewhat, and they would not go it. So 3 other members didn't sign off the board at that particular meeting then, not later. They were taken off the board immediately. So I thought I could talk him back into coming on the board, but when Ellison, he said he was going to go down and talk to him after he thought about it. He said that he would sign it. So he went back. This must have been a day or 2 later. He went back to tell Giloman that he would sign it, and she rejected to put him back on the board. I mean, what? So after he told me that, I just resigned from the board because I felt it would be no use in me being on the board, because they would sooner or later, you know, take me off the board, because you know, right is right, and I have to be able to say something. If I was elected by the community, I want to represent the community.